Welcome to Magdala. Right behind me you can see Duke and Altum, one of the most beautiful places here at Magdala. And the sun is going down as Father Eamon and I together will take you for a quick overview of the geography of the Holy Land. And the idea of this time that we have to present to you before we begin our virtual pilgrimage is that you can put what we will be visiting and seeing and the places where we will be praying into that historical context. You know, ever since I think it was 7th grade, I've had a very deep desire to come to the Holy Land. I think part of it was because of a wonderful teacher I had in social studies who spoke a great deal about the Middle East. But there was also this deep faith that I had received from my own family, from my mother. And so I longed to see those places where Jesus walked and where he taught, where the apostles were, where the first followers of Christ were, where the church came together. And so it's really a privilege for me to be able to lead you together with Father Kelly on this pilgrimage. And here right next to Duke and Altum, we have a wonderful piece of artwork done by a Chilean artist, Maria Jesus Fernandez. And so if you can follow me, we're going to take you through some of the places that are indicated on this mosaic. It's actually a map of Galilee based on some historic maps in this area, one that they found in Jordan. And when you come to visit us, perhaps you can also visit the map of Magdala. But it's a modern rendition of the geography of the Holy Land, and Father Eamon knows this area very well. But again, it's to put ourselves into that context and to understand better how long did it take Jesus, for example, to walk from Cana to Nazareth, or from Galilee to Mount Tabor, which is also in Galilee, or down to Jerusalem. And so I think this map will give us a hand. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of wind, which happens in the evening, but that also is part of the experience of the Holy Land, wouldn't you say? The dust on your feet, the wind in your hair, the smells, the sounds, the different plants and animals all around us, and you can see the Sea of Galilee as well. So follow me down here to our map, and we can look at some of the most important places. But I would also like Father Eamon to participate as well, but he will.
I'm delighted to participate. But we're walking already, which is a good way to do a pilgrimage.
Yes, it sure is, isn't it?
And we're walking together. This is very important. It's a community. Pilgrimage is a community endeavor.
So here to our right, I wanted to point out something, since we're looking at the smaller picture first, because this is a round map, and you see here the big word that says Galilee right in the center of the map. And on the upper right, you see the word that says Phoenicia. Okay?
Let's walk over there, eventually.
Yes, we will get over there, I think. And then we have here to our right, we're actually faced toward the north, and here to our right is the word Gaulanitis. Go ahead, what was it?
Gaulanitis.
Yes, and then we have the Decapolis, which is probably a word you might be a little bit more familiar with.
It's mentioned in the Gospels.
Many times. And what I wanted to actually point out, again, is the center part where we have a big blue body of water, and it says the Sea of Galilee right on that sea. And so to the left of the sea, as we're looking at it, which would be toward the west, is the Rosetta of Magdala. And so that's sort of the X on our map. And we see where Duke and Altum is in there, and that's where we're standing right now. So let's take a look at the southern part, and we're going to step down onto the map. I think it would help. The southern part, because that's where we're standing. Here we have a mosaic that was placed here, and it has two figures in it. Well, three really. The Holy Spirit, Jesus, and John the Baptist in the water. And that's right off of a blue line which says the Jordan. So that actually indicates in the desert area south of the Sea of Galilee.
Way south near Jericho, across from Jericho.
Right. And so this is a place where it was probably, we'll be able to visit this area, at least the Jericho area, because this place is closed for the lockdown period that we're in here in Israel, where Jesus was baptized. And if you look here to the left, you'll see some different important little cities in this time and some figures, but there's some men carrying something on their arms. And this is actually looks like Jesus is pointing down to the south, and there's some folks following him, and he's pointing down to a word on the lower part of our map, which is the word Jerusalem. You can see some of those letters of the word Jerusalem. And that's because when they went up to Jerusalem, it's actually going south from Galilee. They're going up because Jerusalem is up in the hills. Now, since we're here in the southern part, we're going to look at a place that we'll be able to visit as we think about the time when Jesus raised a widow's son from the dead. And it's here in this place called Nain. And what I wanted you to focus on when we look at some of these pictures is the eyes of Jesus, and then the different people that he meets. We'll be looking into his eyes during this pilgrimage. Here also to our left, it looks like we have Jesus, who is encountering someone at a well, and that would be the Samaritan woman. It's figured here on the map, even though it says very clearly, it's a little bit further south where it says Jacob's Well, with an arrow pointing to it. That's in the land, the ancient land of the Samaritans. And that's the time when Jesus wanted to pass through there.
It's present day in Nablus, and the biblical name was Sichem.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Now, if we go up, before we go to Nazareth here, we're going to cross what they call the Kishin River. And I want to point out two folks, this is what I was looking for, carrying grapes on a large pole. And these are a representation of those folks that
the ones who were exploring the Promised
right.
Land when they were coming back from Egypt.
Who sent them in, Father? I was just...
Moses.
No, not Moses.
Joshua.
Joshua sent these folks in. One of them is Caleb, and some of them came back with sort of negative reports, but these two came back carrying the fruits of the land, which are quite large, and so that was beautiful for them to be able to decide to come in. And that's right across where Jesus was baptized. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's over here to the west part of Galilee, Father, which we see?
Well, Nazareth, I think you heard that name before, probably. We see a carpenter shop there with Joseph and Jesus, and Mary's in the background. And then here we have Cana of Galilee.
Those are two places we will make very important visits. And I wanted to show you the seacoast. I don't think we'll be able to go to the seacoast on our pilgrimage, but it's important to understand how close the Mediterranean Ocean is, the sea here.
So when we have Mount Carmel with the prophet Elijah and all that story. Also we have this village here, Sepphoris, which is very close to Nazareth. It's about an hour walk from Nazareth, which is here. And then there's a theory that since Joseph was a very accomplished tradesman, as teknon was the Greek word, where we have that word retained in the word architect. So he was a very qualified, like a master tradesman, and he wouldn't have much work to do in Nazareth, but he was only an hour walking to Sepphoris, an hour commute by foot. And that was a capital before Tiberius of the Galilee region, and so there would have been a lot of work there, as excavations of archaeology show. So it would be very reasonable that he would have worked his private life there.
A little bit further north from Carmel is Haifa, which is an important city even today. And then we have this sort of a bay area that goes up to Akko.
And we have Caesarea Maritima,
right,
port city.
Which, we passed to the south of Mount Carmel. And Akko is important not because we'll be able to visit there, but because it was a city before, but it was also an important place where Christian pilgrims would land, and that's important. Now we're going to the area of Phoenicia here. We have a wonderful medallion that shows us, it's actually a woman who's speaking to Jesus, and she's pointing to her home, perhaps to her daughter. That would be the Canaanite woman. This whole area was filled with Canaanites from the beginning. And you see Tyre and Sidon to the north, which would indicate the Lebanon area.
Actually, if we just look at in the distance here, behind those trees, we have the mountains of Lebanon up there. That's Safat right there, but just to the left are the mountains of Lebanon. And so we're within reach of Lebanon, as we pointed out.
And what you'll notice as we walk across this mosaic map are some beautiful flora and fauna. And these are actually animals and plants that you do find here in the Holy Land. We're right next to Cana again.
And you can see we have still some birds flying in here at the moment.
We sure do. And you'll notice there's another Cana here. That's not the Cana that we will visit. There's a lot of different Canas. So we're going to go across this area. Here's Safed, as Father pointed out in the distance. This is what we were actually seeing. And then you have up here to the north, I wanted to show this because we will actually be able to go there later this month. It's the city of Dan, which is also an important place, one of the places where even Abraham came in and saved his cousin Lot. But you've got Hermon, which is a
Mount Hermon
mountain there where people even ski today, but incredibly important in the gospel. And then we have a place called Caesarea Philippi, not the same as Caesarea Maritima. And you have two figures there.
So this is you can see a key in Jesus' hand. So we're there with Matthew chapter 16, and that extraordinary confession of faith in the nature of Christ. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God.
It was a very important question that Jesus asked Peter. Who do you say that I am? Here we're going to follow the Roman road, and also, which is in red, and also the Jordan, because it starts up in the mountains, okay, in different areas and comes down. You see all these birds here because that's the Hula Valley, where there are thousands of birds that make their migration route every year in the spring and in the fall. Now, we walked right over a northern part. Well, actually, it's kind of northwestish. Right north of Capernaum, we have here where we have Jesus and Peter. But we also have the Beatitudes. You notice there's 8 stars in the sky, right? No, there's actually a few more than that.
There are actually 10.
There are 10. But you see Jesus there on the mountain, and you see the crowds listening to him proclaim the Beatitudes. And again, right south of that is Capernaum, which is certainly a place we will be visiting, where we can see Peter's house. We're actually looking at some of the ocean part, but if we go to Capernaum again on the seashore and make our way a little bit to the west of the sea, and we have a place, an image which is very well known, looks like 2 fish and a basket full of bread.
So here we have the multiplication of the loaves remembered in Tabcha, which derives from the 7 springs. There's abundant fresh water pouring in from springs, probably water originating at Mount Hermon also. And this water is pouring into the Sea of Galilee, and very abundant place for fishing. So
the water was even warm there, right, Father? Because some of those springs were warmer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why lots of fish up there.
The fish are there, and we have the miracle of the loaves and fish.
And then we have this beautiful plain, well, not really plain, it's sort of a long, a place where a lot of people could sit in Gennesaret, so that might be where Jesus did some of his preaching as well.
Good. So I think we have a nice introduction here with Magdala.
I wanted to point out our bell right here, and also this large...
We can point out our bell also here.
Yes.
Look at the sunset.
Right over the city of Nazareth, right? At least to the west.
There are cliffs of Arbel up there on the left of the screen. And all those birds enjoying the evening breeze.
There is just one couple of other things I wanted to just show you here on the sea. Tiberius was an important city much later.
Herod Antipas made it his capital, the capital of Galilee. Herod the Tetrarch.
Right, and named it after the Roman emperor at that time, Tiberius. And then across the sea, there was a place called Hippos, part of the Decapolis. That would be the Hellenistic area. It was a large city. There were a lot of Christians later in history. A lot of monasteries and churches are found there in the archaeology. And then a place, we'll go back up to Bethsaida, but first let's look at Kersey here. I find this very entertaining part of the mosaic, where you have some of these. Oh, there's Jesus pulling Peter out of the water when he asks to walk on the water. Look, he's sinking there. And that's kind of in a stormy part of the sea, which is toward the south. And then if we go onto the shore, you can see some of these animals that look like wild boar. And that might be where Jesus drove the demons out of the man, and they went over to the cliff and were drowned in the sea. And then there's Hippos, the capital I was speaking about. But if we go and we follow that shore up, Damascus is, of course, to our east. To the east, this is the area of Gilead, actually. There's a balm in Gilead, if you remember one of the things it says in the Old Testament. And here's Bethsaida. And this is an important place because
well, we have the disciples in Bethsaida. It's a fishing town.
Absolutely.
And so they're disciples hailing from Bethsaida. So this is the turf where Jesus is preaching for his public life. About 70%, 80% of Jesus' public life is flagged here.
And he made it his home, which is important.
He was at home in Capernaum, at Peter's house.
And the different scenes that happen on the Sea of Galilee, from Jesus preaching from the boat, Jesus sleeping in the boat when his apostles are in a storm. We've got him with the miraculous catch of fish, and just the different things here. And then, of course, the important Via Maris, which goes right from the north of the Sea of Galilee, right next to Magdala. So there's many things that have happened in this area. This gives you a little bit of a perspective, and we'll look at it in just a general way again as we make our way out of the map. And we're going to talk a little bit about...
You have arrived. You're in the Holy Land. Your pilgrimage has started.